Miami, stay in the kitchen and stay in the bedroom. That's it.
Great. Okay.
I'm Gorilla Pontoon, and joining us later will be an esteemed colleague of mine. Hello, everyone, and once again, welcome to Ring into Focus, where we feature the most informed commentary on the topic of professional wrestling. We've got a great show lined up for you. Action hot and heavy in the current news. Mid-South Wrestling is on the card, as well as none other than Hacksaw, Jim Duggan. It's a happening. Without further ado, let's go ahead and bring on in from Four Corners podcast. It's Brad. What's going on, Brad?
Oh, not much. How about you?
Oh, just sitting here waiting for the stream to start. That's about it. That's all I do all day. I sit here for 12 hours. Up, it's time to go live. Let me click the button. I don't do anything else.
Is your Jake picture autographed or no?
Yeah, it is. That's the one. Let me see if I can find this photo here.
I met him at a con. Oh God,
What year?
2016 or 2017, maybe now.
He was probably in pretty good shape at that point, right?
Yeah, he was in pretty good shape.
Because we've seen video and stuff, like even up to 2012, he was not in good shape. And when we say that, folks, what we mean is we don't really mean his physical condition. We mean drug-wise and all that type stuff. But here it is right here. This is from a couple of years ago. I met him. He was in good health, but he had a foot problem and he had to have some surgery about a week from then. So it's like he couldn't wear shoes. So he's wearing slips and stuff. But he was clean, obviously. This is 2021 right here. But yeah, great guy. And I'm there, and like everyone else, maybe like two or three other people were like old school fans. So I'm in the front row because like the whole damn front row's open. It's like I'm sitting in the front row. And then, he has these gaps in his memory. Like, we were on the road all the time. We did Superstars, and what was the name of that other show? And I'm like, Challenge. He's like, oh yeah, Challenge, and so I was the first person in line at the table too. And I'm like, okay, I got the photo. I want, all the frame, all that stuff. And, and the autograph and the photo. And I'm like, okay, here's what I want to do. I want to signal for the DDT. Remember when you used to do that? And he kind of smiled, because I doubt anyone even remembers that type stuff, right? And so he was impressed that someone remembered that. So we took the photo, and I gave him extra money. I'm like, it was supposed to be 120. I'm like, here's 160, because I'm sure he doesn't get paid that much, especially given the situations that he's in. So great guy at this point in his life. You can just tell now that he's in a really good place in life. So
yeah, I don't know how many people in the chat saw it back in the day, but Beyond the Mat had a whole section on him, and it's really bad.
Oh, that was, yeah. I actually went to the theater to see that. I drove hour and a half because they didn't have it where I was, and yeah, I drove an hour and a half and saw it, and it was like, holy shit, I can't wait for this on DVD. And I bought it as soon as it came out at Suncoast.
I did all the commentaries on the DVD because I think they had Foley. They had the guy that did it. Did they have Terry Funk do commentary on it?
I think it was Ventura, Mick, and Barry Blaustein.
Yeah.
And maybe one other person. I'm not sure if it was Funk or not. So. Yeah.
And that gives me one of my favorite wrestling memes with a Dennis stamp. I'm not booked on the card.
Oh, dude, we online, even before I met you guys, we would talk about that all the time. I mean, it was like a meme before memes were even a thing.
Yeah.
Let's say hi to the chat. Dan Blackroyd, longtime mod, is in the house, and I agree. Hit the like. Admiral Screed is here. Melissa Lord, first ever member of the channel. Corey Cochran, the music sharing man. Preston's here. We've got Yeah, this is a wrestling stream. That's correct. You don't watch it anymore? Well, it's not really about current. We're going to talk about current real world, not current like storylines. And then we're going to talk about Mid-South wrestling from the 80s and Hacksaw Jim Duggan. There's Shad, aka Sombra, and he has the links here. Twitter, he's got Instagram, he's got Redbubble for merch, he's got their YouTube channel. Click on those, subscribe, follow, and all that stuff, guys. Did I show Jake my snake? I did not. But back in the day, I would have shown Cheryl my snake. Remember his wife, the one that he brought on television when the whole storyline with Ravishing Rick Rude was going on? Big deck, big snake. Steezo for life is in the house. Melissa met Medusa. A neighbor is good friends with her, and there was one day neighbor called me and said Medusa is here. You want to meet her? That's cool. She seems like an interesting person. I watched whatever that interview show that JBL had. I watched the one with her, and it was one of the better ones because I felt like it was one of the most transparent ones because she just straight up.
She seems too nice for wrestling.
Yeah.
No one ever has anything bad to say about her. Actually, she just did an interview with Meltzer, and it was hilarious because she was talking, and she's super honest. She's like, "Yeah, Dave, the first time I saw you, I thought you were hot." Because if people in the chat, if you know who Meltzer is, Meltzer is a power lifter. So Meltzer is built. Like, you might think he's like the small nerdy guy, but Meltzer is like buff.
When did he start doing that though?
Oh, he like in the 80s.
Okay.
There's like video of him with like this awful mullet sitting next to Vince, and like he's like big in that too.
Huh. I know that recently, I've seen him pretty jacked, but back in the day, like I had no idea because it's not like he was on television all the time and stuff.
No, yeah.
He was on Donahue, and it's like beyond that, it's his really small typing on folded up papers with bad grammar. That's the Meltzer I know. So
right, and I used to have that sub. I think they'd always get there on like Thursday or something back in the day. And if people in the chat never have seen an Observer, I should have gotten one out. I think I have some in the basement here.
I have some somewhere.
It was probably like 20 or 30 pages. And I think he was using a computer by the time I was getting it, but no, it could have still been a typewriter, but it was just full. It would take you hours to read an Observer.
Right. Oh yeah. I used to take him to work. I had this job where I had some reading time, and I got one of those like magnifying glass things.
Oh,
because
yeah.
he would separate each piece by an ellipsis. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
It wasn't even like in paragraph. It was just ellipsis, next thing. It could have been 2 lines, ellipsis, next thing. And it was like tiny print. And you're like, reading the thing, and it took hours. And he did it once a week.
I know. And it was expensive too. Like, I think it was $90, I think, for close to a year when I was getting it.
Yeah. I mean, it was worth it though, because you learned a lot, and you could speak to it to your friends and stuff like that.
The crazy thing is he did 2 some weeks.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, I remember there would be like
if someone died, you get like an extra bio and stuff.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and and he would crank those bios out in like a week. It's crazy the work ethic that guy.
So I have his books, the tributes books.
Mm-hmm.
I think it was when the first, might have been the second. I don't remember. One of them came out, and he didn't include someone, and like I called it out, and this is by the time he was online, 2000 or so, and then I replied to a bookseller, and then the publisher emails me, and they asked for my address. It's like, okay. So I gave it to him, and they mailed me a free copy of the book, and it had a card saying, I thought you'd enjoy a free copy of the book, which I thought was odd. and I'm like, hey, do you need any writers? You know, so obviously that didn't pan out. But yeah, those are pretty good books. Tributes 1 and 2. They probably have 10 to 12 profiles each. So
I think I have like the first 20 years of the Observer on a drive somewhere, actually.
nice.
Because they're fascinating, especially if I had more time when we did the show, like I would utilize those more.
Mm-hmm.
But adulting and podcasting don't always mix.
Exactly. Yeah, Undertaker's a legend for sure. So I don't know if you were able to catch it, but I happened to be off on a Monday. It was my last day off. Well, I think I took a day off since then, but I was off that day. Woke up, get the family out of the house, sit down on the couch, get my phone out, go to Twitter, and like the very first thing I see is the news. We knew the news was coming, but I didn't know it was going to come this quick. So it's like, hey, WWE has accepted an offer. It still hasn't happened yet officially, but it's going to. It's just going through all the motions. So I'm like, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to go live. Had a pretty good audience on a Monday morning impromptu, and I did about 45 minutes of reading. What are the terms, all that stuff. Who is this company? And holy shit, this is going on. Had a good audience, and it was great. So it's a little bit shocking though, because let's go back to Meltzer. Like he was reporting on UFC, WWF, all that stuff, 2000, 2001. Whoever would have thought, hey, 22 years from now, UFC and WWE are going to be the same company owned by a larger company. Like
Well,
who ever thought?
Technically, Vince, the way it works, Vince is the biggest shareholder in the merged
Yeah, I know.
company.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, in my opinion, Endeavor was like the second worst company that could have bought them.
Oh yeah, there's going to be changes, and
they're not gonna invest in talent. Like if you know how they run the UFC, they're gonna price gouge you. They're not gonna invest in talent. They're gonna lowball guys. Like I would say, your main eventers will stay the same, but you're gonna see like a massive decline in like the lower card guys over the years.
Yeah. And I looked at all the different companies they own and stuff, and yeah, pretty woke mega corporations. So you're going to start seeing some of that creep into it. And I think even in the past content, kind of like NBC on the Peacock stuff, they went back and edited out certain things. You're going to see that. You're going to see it multiply. I guarantee. It's pretty much over. And honestly, like, let's talk about the motives here. There had been rumors of them selling for longer than, last summer. I remember hearing it a year, 2 years, 3 years ago.
I think on our podcast, we've been talking about it for, I'm thinking 2019. I think there were rumblings like when they were doing the TV deal, but you could tell it was coming though before last year, because the way they were just cutting the roster bare, you could tell they were doing like what a company does, where they're like just cutting expenses left and right to get that profitability as high as possible to do the
Right.
sale.
Well, and obviously this we know why it happened when it happened, because Vince had been forced out, and it's like, well, here's my way back in. I'm still majority shareholder. I don't care what the board says. I'm going to come back, sell, and in that deal, I'm going to get back into power, and that's exactly what happened.
I think what sucks for them though is, honestly, she doesn't get enough credit, but Stephanie McMahon had a big part in like cleaning up their corporate image.
Mm-hmm.
Like she is why they became so mainstream and like suddenly palatable, which I don't think younger people realize. Like even during the Attitude Era, they were still not like acceptable mainstream. Like Stephanie really did a lot to corporatize them, to make them like kind of, I guess, not as carny of a company.
Yeah, for sure.
She's
JYD will come up, Steezo.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, we won't get Roddy Piper in blackface and half blackface.
That's
Man, that was a classic. I mean, it was just that was who he was. But yeah, I mean, it'll be interesting to see how it plays out, but I don't think it'll be finalized until I think I said June would be the earliest. I could see late June happening, but I could see December happening as well. So we'll just have to see because you wouldn't think it's going to be this long ass review by the fucking SEC or whoever looks at it. You know, it wouldn't be that long.
it
So
took them when my company got bought. It took 8 months
okay, but
because
you
it
know,
has to be reviewed. They have to like go over the books and everything, and then they also have to endeavor. Well, I don't know, because when they bought our company, it was a privately owned company, and I was in a publicly owned company, so they had to pay anyone that had stock like the agreed upon price. So I even had like a couple shares of stock I didn't know, and suddenly there was like $500 in my account. I'm like, oh, okay, I'll
right.
take it.
Right. Well, you know, and it just depends how complex the companies are and stuff. We'll see what happens. And then once that happens and the TV deals are up, it's like what really happens. It's, you know, definitely going to change the face
And
of.
they're in for a rude awakening when the
Oh,
TV
yeah.
comes around because
Oh, yeah.
Fox is saying they've been losing money on it.
Oh, yeah, I bet. Yeah, it'll be interesting. But, you know, I think in 2023, probably before, but at this point, just, you know, the wrestling that we've known for 50, 100 years, whatever is gone. You know, it's no, not only are there not territories, you know, since the 80s, now it's like it's a corporate, a couple of corporations pretty much, you know, in the United States. That's all it is.
Yeah.
And honestly, like a lot of people, you know, they go back and forth which promotion's better. For me, it's the exact same thing with different players. You could say, oh, well, this storyline and that. I see the exact same thing. When I compare it to this old stuff, I get a different feeling. I get the same feeling when I watch the two big guys now. I just do. It's like, oh, it's a different, you know, obviously different performers and, you know, different storylines, but the style, you know, slightly different production
Yeah.
quality and value. But still, it's like this is what they do now, and they're all over the place. It's not like it used to be, and I can tolerate some of it, but when I watch the old stuff, I don't care if it's even early 2000s, if it's 90s, especially 80s, like it's just a different feeling you get. Like it takes you back. And I think they could still do that. I got that actually watching NWA Power. What was that?
Yeah,
2019, right before COVID. You got that
screwed
feeling
that
from
up.
that. Oh, big time.
Because
Big
like
time.
what they like I don't care who you are. Like having Tyrus as your world champion is unacceptable. He is a
Mhm.
completely incompetent and incapable worker, and I don't know why.
I've never
like,
seen him. I couldn't tell you.
He was
I believe you, though.
he was Brodus Clay in WWE.
I remember
back.
that. Yep.
Yeah, that's who it is. Except he's old and he can't like move now,
Hmm.
and it's just this is ridiculous.
The only time I saw him, because I was getting caught up, like in 2019, 2018.
Hmm.
I was home on a Sunday, whatever, obviously home, and I'm like, okay, I'm barbecuing. I'm gonna get the pay-per-view, WrestleMania. I'm gonna see what it's about. I'm like, all right, that wasn't too bad. So then I'm like, I'm gonna catch up. So I hadn't seen 24 on. So I went 24 all the way to like whatever it was at the time, 35, I guess.
Hmm.
And you know, every weekend I'd watch another one, and I'm like, okay, you know, there's great stuff in there. You know, HBK, Undertaker 1 and 2, and all that other stuff. There was a lot of great stuff. So I got caught up that way, and then I remember seeing him, and he wasn't even wrestling at that point. He came out to do like a promo or something. So even at
Yeah.
that point, I think they realized like, uh-oh. You know what he was? He was like the proto Top Dollar. Probably.
Oh God, I think Top Dollar's terrible.
Oh yeah, I couldn't believe that you know they got called up. I couldn't believe it. I'm
Well, I
like,
can't
what?
believe I can't believe they're trying to do like a rapping gimmick with a guy that can't rap when you have the Acclaimed on AEW that actually, can do the gimmick well.
Or John Cena was better. I mean,
Yeah.
you hate to say that, but that's for me. That's when they started ruining him, when they kind of took that away. He
Yeah.
comes out at the one where he opened the show with Big Show. That was like, for me, I like that John Cena. But then when they did the whole all on positive and he's getting booed out of the building, it's like, yeah, they deserve it. Justin, Star Wars Marvel purist, is in the house. Yeah, do unto others, Austin 316. The top selling wrestling shirt of all time. Yeah, the U.S. title win is what it was, correct. That was when he was pretty cool, like rapping white guy. First he's a heel, and then it started catching on, and now he's a face. And it was good, but then they just ruined it. I know that his merch sold a lot and stuff, but
He still sells tickets. Like
yeah.
if you put him on in like a house show, even today, it'll sell extra tickets in the thousands.
And one of the greatest like music videos of all time is the A-Team one, Bad
Mhm.
Man. Gosh, that was fantastic.
He
Anyway,
was
this isn't the John Cena stream.
he was good in his appearance on Psych, and I think his Peacemaker is decent enough. Like his take on it.
Yeah. Anyway, that's what's going on, guys. If people that haven't heard the last couple of months, a big mega conglomerate entertainment company called Endeavor has acquired, and they already owned UFC, so they've acquired WWE, and within the structure, they're under the same company. At the time, I haven't looked into it. They were calling it what was the temporary name?
I don't remember.
TKO.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, okay, is that a shot at the other guy, right? At AEW, I don't know, but even their ticker was going to be that. So Nuco is what it was. Nuco and TKO was their stock ticker, but eventually they'll come up with a new company name.
And I think that on the last update, AEW has sold 43,000 tickets for the Wembley show.
How many does Wembley hold? I can't remember since the SummerSlam.
I don't remember.
Probably double that. Do they play soccer there?
I don't know. The SummerSlam from '92 says 80,000, but it's disputed.
Oh, it's all their.
Yeah,
just like this year, 160,000. Yeah, but it was too nice, and it was some of the same people.
I'm gonna say I'm probably gonna guess like somewhere between 60 and 70,000, depending on the configuration. But for reference to this, though, if you take WCW as a singular brand, not their like joint shows with New Japan, this is a bigger draw than anything WCW ever did, because WCW's biggest draw was like that January '99 show in the Georgia Dome that drew like 41,000. So that's pretty big news for them,
right?
Because they were hoping for, I think, 30 or 35, and they've done pretty well. So I think they could probably get up to 50, which would be a big deal, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, or you could do it in North Korea, where you're forced at gunpoint to go to the show, and get 120,000. So
that did you watch the Dark Side of the Ring on that one?
Yeah. I don't know if they told the whole story, but what they did tell was pretty messed up,
Yeah.
And some of it had nothing to do with Korea, like the whole feud between Scorpio and what's his name?
I don't know why that was so prominently featured. Like, I find Scorpio entertaining on interviews, but it's like that episode I felt was a little weaker than some of their other ones, because, and I think that's a struggle I have with some of the other ones, is the narrative jumps too much instead of just telling it straight like through. Because they kind of did that on the Plane Ride from Hell episode.
Yeah.
And I don't know why they do that, because it makes it it makes it difficult to follow.
Did you see several days ago? Did you see in the group chat? Did you see my comment on the Hawaii territory episode?
Yeah, I've not seen much Hawaii, and I haven't watched the new.
Watch that episode because you'll learn something. Like it was like, wow, I didn't know any of this. It was like, holy smokes. Like, Rock's grandmother is the, promoter after her husband died. It was like this, it was a great one. And they shared a lot of the stuff that I'd never heard of, like some connections to different things. I don't want to give anything away, but the other ones were pretty decent that I've seen to date. The Calgary one was okay. It had Abby. It had some what's his name? The cowboy that what was his name from Calgary? Cowboy.
What's his last name? Lane.
Yeah, not Stan Lane. Obviously,
Frankie
it was
Lane.
Frankie. Yeah, he was on there. Brett was on there. Believe it or not.
Yeah, Brett had a cowboy gimmick in the late 70s and early 80s.
Oh, and yeah, I remember that. And Schultz was on there because he worked up there a lot. The Dr. Death or Dr.
D.
Dr. D. They had a lot of good stories, but it really wasn't interesting. The Hawaii one was like, wow, I learned something I didn't know about before. And they go into how, the Samoan culture went into Hawaii and it kind of clashed with the Hawaiians and stuff. And riots and the story of you know who else was on that one was I like this guy every time I've seen him, and tell me if I have a reason not to, is why can't I think of his name? Kevin Sullivan. I like him in interviews, man. He's awesome. He's a good storyteller and stuff.
There's a funny story someone was talking about. They were working in the Bahamas or something, and they wanted him to hang some guy, and Kevin Sullivan's like, okay, wait, let me get this straight. You want me to hang a black man in the Bahamas? Like, are you serious?
I can hear him with his Boston accent
Yeah.
saying that. Let me get this straight. You want me to hang a black man? Yeah, I can hear him telling that story.
Yeah.
But he had some good ones. Like he screwed himself because he was going to have a match with I think it was CV Offie. Because I don't know if you know this, but before he went over to New York, he was huge in the islands. Like he was one of the most popular wrestlers. He was the champion at the time. So they're like, what's her name? Rock's grandmother's like, you're going to go over and you're going to win the belt. He's like, okay. So he goes out there. I think they were in Samoa for this show because they would travel. So he goes out there and there's almost a riot already starting and stuff. So he runs into the ring and he like trips and falls and he pulls CV Offie on top of him and he yells at the referee to count 3 and the ref does and he runs back out and she goes up to him and is like, what did you just do? And he's like, I lost. And she's like, go back out there and win. He's like, I'm not going out there. So he got the hell out of there as quick as he could because he said they smoked some kind of like this psychedelic stuff. Or it's like a moonshine though. It's like they drink it and so he was like freaked out. He had to tell the story. So watch that episode. It really was worth it.
There's a funny interview with, I don't remember which one. It's Offer Asika, and they're talking about how they broke into the business.
Yeah.
And they used to go to the matches in San Francisco. And they're
Yep, Dan's right. Dan's from Australia, so he knows.
Yeah. They're like, we're young and dumb, and when the heels would get one over on Peter Maivia, we'd start causing a problem. We'd beat up security, and they'd like mace us and stuff. And they got sick of it, and the promoter was finally just like, either train these guys or ban them.
I remember hearing about that. Yeah.
Yeah,
I remember hearing about that. But it was a good episode. I'm gonna move on to the next several.
Meltzer says the Marty Jannetty one is gonna be just crazy.
Wow.
Because I don't.
Have you seen his activity online?
Oh, it's terrible.
At first you think it's a gimmick account or someone's commandeered it, but no, that's really him because he'll post pictures and stuff.
Yeah.
So
that one's gonna be crazy.
Yeah, I think he just said about right after he left on his return, what was that, 2004-5? He just said, "Screw it. I'm just gonna do drugs and live my life the way I want." I think that's what he decided at that point. Pretty
Yeah.
sad. Anyway, let me go ahead and share this here, just so that we can have it. So there it is, guys. The short history of this is going back to the 50s. That territory started out as NWA Tri-State. And then I'm going to say in the early 70s, they changed to Mid-South. And then in the late 70s, that's when Bill Watts, aka Cowboy Bill Watts, acquired the promotion. And people who don't know him, he became a huge figure in the industry, especially in WCW. What was he at the time? He was like, I don't know what the official title was, but he was head booker.
He's VP of something or other.
Yeah. So honestly, all the interviews I've seen with him, well-spoken, brilliant mind for the business. I mean, you can't deny that.
Really ahead of his time in a lot of ways. There's a story I'll tell about something he was involved in.
Yeah, fire away.
So before he did Mid-South, he was involved in like the Georgia office. And they did this angle because they wanted to see when cable started. They wanted to see who was watching from markets. And so they did this angle and they did like a write-in thing for it because they wanted to see what was going to come from where. And he had a big part in this. So Columbus, Ohio, where I live, was very wired with cable early. And so they got a lot of letters from Columbus, Ohio, like a lot. That's where they got the vast majority. So Columbus got the first ever Georgia Championship Wrestling show that was not in Georgia because of that. And I looked the card up once. I should have had it here, but I think they had Andre like on the first show.
That's a great
in like 80 or 81. But yeah, so he's very much a visionary in a lot of ways in his era. Because he was really like the first smart, friendly promotion. I mean, if you watch Mid-South, I know it's weird to say because it's older, but it's very much like a work rate promotion.
And what that means, for the uninitiated, is it means that the ring work was, we don't need to go into the exact definition but the wrestling was better and it didn't look horrible. Because I can tell you guys now, 1981 in my rewatch, New York, aka by then they were just World Wrestling Federation, not Worldwide Wrestling Federation. It's horrible. It's like they literally get guys off the street and
that's sparse unless you get like Patterson Wrestling or Slaughter or Greg Valentine or Backlund coming through.
the best ones I've seen so far, you had Kurt Hennig against Jesse Ventura. You had Kurt Hennig against someone else. So he was a young, Kurt Hennig, obviously, before he left to go to AWA. There was anytime they paired up, what's his name? Puerto Rican guy, Johnny Rods. If they teamed him up with, what was the bald Puerto Rican guy? And he was jobbing well into the like primetime era. It's like three names. Was
that like Jose Estrada?
Jose Estrada. Yeah, not three names. I don't know where I got that from, but they would team them up and they were a lot better than most of the jobbers. They would put them up against, Tony Garea from New Zealand and Rick Martel. They were a tag team. That was a pretty decent match.
Is Eddie Gilbert around at all yet?
In which?
In WWF at the time.
No, I didn't even know he was ever there.
Yeah, he's around for a bit. I don't know how much he would be on like the television.
No, not yet. It's right now. It's even Patterson's announcing mainly.
Yeah,
Pedro just won the IC title.
There's a really good
he's horrible, by the way.
Yeah, there's a really good from '79. It's on TV and you can find it on YouTube. It's Pat Patterson versus Ted DiBiase for the North America title. You can also find the interview on there where they do the like Patterson wins the North American title, and then they do oh yeah, I won this tournament in Brazil for this
For the
brand
South
new,
American.
for
Yeah.
this new Intercontinental Championship. They did.
Yeah, because there was a fictional South American one. They unified them,
Yeah.
and they created the Intercontinental. Yeah.
But then
But
when is
the ring work is horrible is the point.
When's the back alley street fight? Is that 81?
Who was in that one?
That's Sergeant Slaughter and Pat Patterson.
Well, in 81 now, I'm in late 81.
Oh, okay.
And he's already in he's in Jim Crockett. He's in he's in Mid-Atlantic right now. So unless it happened earlier in the year and then he left to go to Mid-Atlantic, I'm not really sure. Because I started in September of that year is when episodes started.
Yeah, so you started with the so when you started JCP in 81, that's right after Abby
I haven't seen him.
Tears up Wahoo really bad. Like the episode before, yeah.
Haven't seen Wahoo either. I've only seen Jay Youngblood and the other guy. Can't think of the other Indian's name.
Oh, it's not Mark, is it?
It might be, yeah. But then he disappears and he starts tag teaming with Ricky Steamboat. But then Ricky would tag team with Jake a lot until what's his name came in? Blackjack Mulligan Jr.
Oh yeah, Barry Windham.
Yes, and it doesn't even look like Barry Windham,
No, because he's really thin at this time.
Yes. So he comes in and then they start. But let me tell you something. This isn't like a 1981 stream in general, but I will say this: like Jake on the mic, even in 81, was like freaking amazing. Because most of these guys are horrible. Like Youngblood was horrible, like just not good on the mic. And then here comes Jake, no stuttering, with the voice, and he wouldn't even say much. It would be like 3 lines, and he'd end it with something like, "I'll tell you what, you go up against me and Ricky, someone's gonna hit the dirt," and like that's the end of the promo, but it had impact and stuff. So you could tell even then he was gonna do something. And
it's funny seeing Ricky Steamboat in that era because like if you know Steamboat from like
he had the Vince stash.
Well, but like he it's funny because he's a power bodybuilder in this era. Like if you think you know what Steamboat looks like, you'll be like confused by this Steamboat because he is ripped.
Yes.
Like he is like a power wrestler, and what happened is the WWE signed him for his body, and then he couldn't maintain that body on the WWE schedule.
Mm-hmm. But anyway, Mid-South, Watts acquired it, I think in 79, and then he said, "Hey, we're gonna change everything." And yeah, to your point, work rate, promotion, the matches are good. It looked different than everything else. Like it started out more professionally. When I say it started out, the shows themselves, it's like, here are the announcers, they're saying, here's what's coming up. You look at Mid-Atlantic at the time, and what's his name? Bob Cottle. He is what he is, but he's kind of like, they're disorganized, and we're going to interview them and them and them. And Mid-South was like very organized. They'd start the show. Here's the lineup. Oh, we're going to have a guest commentator this week. It's Ted DiBiase. He'll be in the booth with me, and let's go to the first match. They announce the match. On Mid-Atlantic, it's like they're so lazy. They get Cottle, just finish an interview. Oh yeah, here's the match, and who's in the ring. They had an actual ring announcer, right? Vince had one too, and you know who it was at the time?
Oh,
it was Gary Michael Capetta.
Oh yeah, he's my favorite of the ring announcers.
He wasn't as good then as he was in the 90s, in my opinion.
Yeah. It depends on in that era, because I have a set from like that era of WWF. It depends on what arena they're working, because if you go to Philly, I think it's that guy that ended up getting in trouble for like molesting children.
Oh, Sapolsky or
and like the backstage like guys can change depending on the venue, because the loop they worked is they pretty much did like the same card in Philly and then MSG and then Boston is how the WWF worked at the time.
Right.
But I think Mid South is it the Irish McNeil's Boys Club that they do the TV in?
I don't know.
I think that's what it is.
But here's the thing, like it was more professional. The music was better. Like the opening montage, it looked more, it didn't look good by today's standards, but then it's like, wow, am I watching Tron or something? Like that would have come out the next year, It looked just a lot more like, wow, this is something new. And the storylines were there. Like you watch All-Star Wrestling, Vince's show, there are no storylines almost. It's like we're going to interview someone and they're going to talk about someone else, but there weren't any confrontations and stuff like that. It's like, man, it's almost colossally boring.
And they I think he really pioneered is like the cliffhanger ending. So if you watch Mid-South, a lot of weeks the match goes through the credits and you don't see the end. And you have to tune in next week to find out what happened.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly.
And
or else they show something at a house show that happened. Like, thanks, assholes, for not showing it on TV.
And I would say, if you watch it, especially in '81, I think the first thing that really stands out about his shows is like he really doesn't like lean heavily into the racial stereotypes like other companies. Like he doesn't do the standard. Well, we have our black wrestler, the
Right.
one wrestler. He embraced his audience, unlike other promotions, even into the 90s. WCW is really guilty of this. Like he really embraced that fan base and, understood, well, their money's just as good as anyone else's.
Well, and here's the thing. Like, I noticed this the other night, and this is kind of where we're at in 2023. Since 2020, we're all horrible people, and we're racists and all this stuff. Well, you look in the ring, past the ring, from the hard camera, as they call it, and I see, there's an interracial couple in Louisiana in 1981. There's a black guy. There's a black guy in a cowboy hat. It's like everyone's there just watching the show. It's like, guys, this is 1981. Like, this whole revisionist history that we're hearing right now is complete bullshit. Now, am I saying that, racism didn't exist then? No, I'm not. What I'm saying is there was a lot more harmony, especially when it comes to this sport, this form of entertainment. Because, hey, if you're a fan of it, it's like, sit down and watch it with me. And you can see that on this show in Louisiana in 1981. It's pretty amazing to see that.
Well, and also he had Ernie Ladd as his booker, and you didn't do that. Yeah, you didn't do that back in the era. Like he had like the first black booker, and I think that's why the conversation around Watts is so complicated. Just because, because I think what his views are don't match what you see in his product.
Right.
Now, can I ask you what crappy music do they have JYD coming out to on the network?
Oh, it doesn't even line up. I'm listening to the beat and I tell my wife, I think that's like Another One Bites the Dust.
It is.
So I'm like, I could just tell by the rhythm and the beat to it. So
because I love JYD in this era because he is such a badass. He's coming out to Another One Bites the Dust. He's got he's not fat in this era. Like he's buff. He's got this chain around his neck. And he just beats some ass. Like there's an episode a couple months you'll get to where Skandar Akbar tries to fireball him and he just blocks it with a chair.
That's crazy. Hey, don't be talking about Memphis wrestling in the presence of Brad. You will offend him.
That's because Memphis is like the best of the 80s TV.
By the way, Blake here is talking about what was the name of that song? They were actually playing it at work for some kind of ceremony where they brought someone down. It's Sirius by the Alan Parsons Project.
Yeah.
That's what he used in WWF.
It was the Mid-South music is just like, I think it's like that standard. They used it in a lot of commercials in that era, I think.
Oh, I love it. It's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's good. I love that opening because they show all the clips, of different action, and no one had like a graphic like that in 1981. The other promotions are just like, oh, the name's coming up and there it is, and that was about it. But there's like, it pulled you in. It's like, okay, I'm ready to watch the show.
What I think I liked about the TV though is they really blurred the lines in card placement, and the way they worked matches kind of hid that pretty well. So, you'd have a Brian Blair and you kind of have an idea like, Brian Blair is kind of lower end mid carder, but the way he would like work a match with, say, like Bob Orton Jr. would, maybe make it look like he had a chance. So it made like the card, it feels really open ended when you watch the shows.
Yeah. Did you know, and I didn't know this until I did some research, did you know that MSWC or MSWA, Mid-South Wrestling Association, did you know they weren't part of the NWA?
Yeah, I knew that.
That's insane. I thought only Pafo was the one to do that.
I mean, Memphis really wasn't either.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Starting
Memphis,
when? Like in the 70s, 80s? Or
70s. They were kind of affiliated with the AWA later on. And I mean, like Flair or
they would still visit.
Yeah. But like, they weren't really affiliated because Mid-South was making too much money. I mean, he bought it in 79 and they sold out the Superdome for the Junkyard Dog versus Michael Hayes match a year later.
Yeah. I read that and I'm like, wow, that's crazy, because I didn't know any others were not part of it, because they always acted like, oh, Angelo Paffo's ICW, like, oh, he's not part of it and it's so horrible and all this. Well, that explains why he was working with Memphis then, before he, folded and Lanny and Randy went to Memphis. So that's crazy.
I'm not even sure if World Class was like, no, World Class was.
They were, yeah.
I'm getting confused because they got so big in 82.
Well, and then you get into shit like 85, 86, and pretty much NWA was synonymous with Jim Crockett, right?
Yeah, because he kind of solidified his control on Flair.
Yes.
So
mm-hmm.
That was,
and he had the national platform as well in the form of TBS. I also didn't know that for a short time Mid-South was on TBS after, I think it was after the Vince thing happened.
Yep.
After Black Sunday.
Well, they were kind of trying different promotions out, and he actually almost got the TV slot that the AWA did on ESPN, but AWA got it because someone in like an executive position knew who Sergeant Slaughter was, and that's how the AWA beat him.
Right.
He really had unfortunate luck with all that stuff because he lost out to JCP there, and I think anytime like Mid-South or UWF got on TV in front of people, it always did big ratings.
Okay, tell them what UWF was.
Okay, so towards like 85 into 86, like he was starting to lose talent because 85 is about when like the promotion wars kind of kicked off because Georgia kind of merged into JCP, so they had this big roster. They just got a national expansion. Hulkamania was kind of going at the time, so he was just losing talent because he couldn't pay them. So his idea was to go national, so he changed it to the UWF.
Yep, and it didn't work.
I mean, it was really popular. Like their TV ratings were insane because it was really great TV. But what happened is the oil collapse happened, and he was primarily in oil country. So,
yep,
that did him in.
It's freaking crazy, man.
And then, I mean, and it really had a cascading effect because so UWF closes, Jim Crockett Promotions buys them, but it overextended Jim Crockett Promotions. So then Ted Turner had to save them, which turned it into WCW.
Yep.
But the Jim Crockett Promotion thing's like a whole different story of how they mismanaged that company.
Yeah, for sure. So let's go into some of the people that came up in the promotion, especially in the 80s. I have a magazine here, but I don't think at the time he was in the promotion, but no, he definitely wasn't in the promotion at that time. This is from 84, but I got this old school magazine, and you got Ted DiBiase. Right now, where I'm watching it, he's a face. But what's that? Here, let me stop this for a minute here. Oh, that's cool. 82.
Yeah, I need to get 83.
So is the quality pretty good on that?
I haven't watched it yet. It's on Blu-rays.
I see the shrink wrap.
I actually don't think it's shrink wrapped.
Yeah. So Ted DiBiase, he's a baby face right now. And you could tell, though, he has this edge to him.
No beard. It freaks people out. It freaks Chad out when we watch something because he didn't have the beard.
But he still has the voice, but great performer. Like, he actually went up against Orndorff in a great match.
Is that the one where, like, Orndorff flips the figure 4 and they kind of...
Yep.
Yeah, okay. And then one of my personal favorites is around in this era, Bob Roop, who was like the enforcer in Florida in the 70s.
Yep.
So basically, for those that don't know, so Roop was the guy, like, if someone was causing problems in your territory, well, in Florida, you would match him up with Bob Roop, and Bob Roop would injure him.
Right.
To prove a point.
Yeah, so he's there. JYD's there, with that fake music right now on the network. Who else is there?
Samoans are there in your era.
Yeah, they haven't been on any of the episodes I've seen yet, but I've seen him in like the preview thing.
I think you got the tail end of Kabuki.
I haven't seen him either, but Brian Blair is there.
Yeah.
And I don't know how long he'd been in the business at that point, but
longer than you'd think.
Okay, well, because they keep acting like he's new, and you can kind of tell it's one of those promotion things where we have to pretend he's new because we don't know him, because he is fantastic. Like he's one of the best ones.
He'd been in Florida for a long time before this.
Yeah, he's one of the, so far of all the matches I've seen, he's probably the top, one of the top 2 workers. He's great. Who else is there? They brought out
Bob Orton Jr.
Yep, he tagged with someone in a match I saw on one of the last episodes I watched. Cowboy Bob.
Wikipedia says Blair debuted in 77.
Okay, so he had 4 years under his belt at that point. So
yeah,
but he's great. Trying to think of who else.
Iron Sheik's there.
Yeah, because here's what freaked me out. Forget Ted DiBiase without a beard. How about Paul Ellering with blonde hair and muscles?
Oh yeah, you won't see him after.
Well, they did a
bunch of this stuff too.
Yeah, they did the club twirl thing. Like how many
Persian
can you do?
clubs? Yeah.
Yeah, and they're like 50, 100, and then Sheik attacks him. But he's supposed to be like an arrogant babyface type, like a lovable, arrogant babyface type.
Yeah, he was a little too cornball for me in that appearance.
Oh, it was horrible. Yeah,
he's too try hard.
Yeah. So Sheik's there.
Ernie Ladd's there as a manager.
Yep.
Oh man, there's a bunch of like job guys that really. King Cobra makes an appearance, who is a guy that pops up in Memphis a lot. I know Mr. Olympia shows up a couple months later one man gang shows up pretty soon after this, who was Crusher Broomfield in ICW.
Yep.
And
Yeah, he jumped all over the place in the 80s until he finally made it to WWF in 87.
yeah, Dusty Rhodes comes in.
Really?
Yeah, they don't have that episode up, but there's like that dream match, and it's Ernie Ladd and the Samoans verse. I think it's Andre the Giant, JYD, and Dusty Rhodes.
Well, that's cool.
They've probably been hyping the dream match on TV.
Mm-hmm.
But where you're at, man, who else is in there? I feel like I'm missing an obvious one. Oh, Mike George, who's kind of a bland nothing.
Yep, he's been in several matches.
Have he and JYD won the titles yet?
No, not yet. JYD's only appeared once. I can't remember who he was.
It was Terry Orndorff, because I think he lost, didn't he? Didn't they load the mask or something?
They haven't done that yet, because I'm in December of 81 at this point.
Okay. Oh, Skandar Akbar is around.
Yeah, yep, that's correct. He's managing the Sheik, yeah. But yeah, it's good. I mean, compared to everything else I've seen from that year, I really like it. I could sit there and again, I want to stop watching the others and I want to binge it. It's like, I got to keep the rotation going because I'm trying to compare and contrast, right? Like what's different between all these promotions at the same time.
Yeah, I think the big difference in philosophy is how they want to draw you to the arena. So in in like the other territories, it's all, well, if you actually want to see the guys that win wrestle each other, you got to pay. And Mid-South is kind of like, hey, we're going to give you like 5 or 6 minutes of these two guys wrestling on TV. Like, we're going to give you a little taste. But if you want to see them like have like the big good match, like, come to the arena.
Yeah.
It's like, hey, Junkyard Dog and like Paul Orndorff are going to wrestle for 4 minutes, but TV time ran out. Why don't you come to the arena and like see what happens?
Yeah. Yeah. So eventually he wound up selling to Jim Crockett, so that suddenly in whatever it was, 87, you start seeing Mid-South guys showing up on TBS, like Dr. Death Steve Williams and people like that. So, and that was the end of it. And that happened a lot in 87. Like WrestleMania 3 happens, and it's like no one else could make money. AWA folded that year, I think.
And AWA lasted until 90. Did they make it till 91? I think they made it till 91, maybe.
Yeah, but they lost TV maybe and all 90, that stuff.
Yeah.
Dallas wound up folding. Like everything just fell apart once there was like a king on top that had all the TV contracts.
Well, and a lot of the promotions made really, really dumb mistakes. Like there's a lot of you'll hear a lot of old timers, especially like Jim Cornette, like waxing poetic about the old days, but a lot of what they say like really doesn't exist. Like you really see, like I enjoy the old stuff, but a lot of times you see the dumb things they do on TV that like cause their demise.
Yeah. And I think at that point, like I lived through it. I know that in 87, 88, the perception was, because we used to talk about it. It's like, hey, NWA is the place you go. It's like a minor league. And once you're ready, they move you up to WWF because you look at the production values. That's what you used to think. So the perception was that, hey, this is the big one. So people stopped like paying attention to a lot of the other ones. It's like, I only have so much time in my life, so I'm going to watch this. And it's all over television. It's like there are 5 or 6 different television shows. You had All American on Sundays. You had Prime Time either on Monday or Thursday if it got preempted. You had Superstar syndicated. You had Challenge. You had gosh, what am I missing here? You had, seems like there were a few a few other like smaller shows. I don't think they ended All Star until 86, and then it turned into Superstars. So
They took over. So Superstars was formerly Championship Wrestling, and then
yeah, that's right, Championship. Yep.
Wrestling
Yep.
Challenge was All Star, because I think
Yep.
Championship Wrestling, weren't they like taping that in like Poughkeepsie or something, and it looks like garbage.
Oh,
and
yeah,
a big
horrible.
part of like that changeover was to get the production values up and do bigger arenas.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Smoky Mountain. I've seen lots of tape of that. Small time.
I have those on Blu-ray and my
Mainly it's thrill seeker stuff, but yeah,
it's there's a timeless quality to Smoky Mountain because it's so hokey.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a lot of good talkers doing that promotion.
Yeah. So let's see here. It was in 82 that Duggan made his first appearance in Mid-South. I guess it says here before he was Big Jim Duggan, but then he went to Hawaii as the Convict, as a masked wrestler. That's interesting. Then he went to
find it if you go. I think I'm trying to remember. It's from Hogan's original WWF heel run. You can find Hulk Hogan wrestling like jobber Jim Duggan on YouTube from like
what year?
Like 81 maybe.
Wow.
Or like maybe 80.
Let's
I think
see.
I think he did some Georgia stuff too.
Yeah, well,
that might have been Big Jim Duggan.
Yeah, it says. Yeah, Georgia, you're right. That was before Hawaii. And then San Antonio, that's where he became Hacksaw. So anyway, 82, he came to Mid-South, and it says he was a tweener heel, like bounty hunter for Skandor Akbar, which is funny because later on, that's what made him turn, because he's like, I'm teaming up with DiBiase, but then DiBiase said, I'm aligning with Akbar. And then Duggan's like, no, I'm not on board. Well, when you came into the promotion, you were like hired help for Akbar. So what?
That's kind of how they did One Man Gang too. And then,
yeah.
So it's like, then he does like the Rat Pack. I think that's him, DiBiase, and Matt Bourne, maybe.
Mm-hmm. Yes, that's correct. Yeah.
And this is like Loaded Glove era Ted DiBiase.
Yep. Yeah, this is the glove right there. Yep. That's great stuff.
And then they go in, like, then I think he wins the tag titles a couple times with Magnum TA. And then towards like 85, he becomes like the top guy. And really, when you want to talk about what finally kind of damaged UWF really bad is Hacksaw defecting to WWF. Mm-hmm. But he's not like, if you're thinking like WWF Hacksaw, it's not. He was just like a badass in Mid-South.
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it says he also teamed up with Terry Taylor. I didn't know that. That's interesting.
Yeah, Terry was like kind of the young plucky baby face until they turned him later, I think, in the UWF.
Yep.
Because I think he was in Eddie Gilbert's stable.
Mm-hmm. And then it was a loser leaves town match. That's how he left to go to WWF, and that was in 87. A lot of people don't realize, he just showed up. I think it was like right before WrestleMania.
Yep, he did, because they did that really hot angle with him against like Sheik and Volkov on TV.
Yep.
Which was really rare. Which was really rare because they didn't do stuff like that. And then he disappears because he gets caught. I think he gets arrested smoking weed in like a car with the Iron Sheik.
Exactly. they were together, and then it was in the news, like not just like in the paper, but literal like news reporters saying these guys are supposed to be enemies and they were caught in the car
Yeah.
together. It's like, oh, you just exposed the business. So yeah, that
So
happened.
he pretty much got fired for the being caught with Iron Sheik. I don't think they would have fired him for smoking weed
No,
at the time.
But what's hilarious is you listen to what's his name, Jim Brunzell tell the story about WrestleMania 3. It's like, all right, we're wrestling Sheik and Volkov, and then here comes this guy with the board. He gets us disqualified, and then we're just kind of standing there in the ring with our arms up. I remember at the time thinking that was really weird, even as like a 11-year-old.
I always hate that shit when someone does that and the guy that got disqualified isn't mad because they're both good guys. I hate that shit.
Yeah.
Hacksaw also has the best convention scam like ever.
What is it?
Because he goes like Home Depot beforehand. He just gets a bunch of little like, mini 2x4s. And then he signs them and sells them for like $20 a piece.
Wow.
Anyway,
what's a mini 2x4?
I don't remember what he gets. It's not a 2x4. He gets some like piece of wood.
Okay,
like,
I know what you're talking about. There's like a whitewood that people use to like trim and finish stuff, and you can paint it really easily. It's already finished, I guarantee.
Yeah.
And they used to be before this Biden economy. They used to be like 50 cents or something like that for 2 feet.
Yeah.
So that's crazy.
Because there's funny. Speaking of Smoky Mountain, I think Jericho tells the story, but like the Rock and Roll Express would just buy like a bed sheet, and they would tear part of it off and sign it and sell it for $20, and then it would be your headband, so you could be part of like the Rock and Roll Express. And that also has my favorite. Going into like how big they were is these like crazy hillbillies gave him and Lance Storm this like video cassette of them doing stuff. And Jericho says the thing that stuck out to him is like it's like their barn, and there's a picture of Jesus, and then above Jesus is like this giant picture of the Rock and Roll Express. Which it's a great story. I think you can find that on YouTube, but it's a funny story.
Do you want to hear an interview with what's his name? Not Ricky Morton, but Robert Gibson.
Sure.
He goes, yeah, that's what we're going to do. Me and Rick can go out there win them belts. That's what we're going to do. And my eye looks 2 different ways. Like, I could never understand a damn word he was saying. And stuff. It was obvious why they gave the stick to Ricky. So,
well, I mean, it's interesting if you go back and watch like how mediocre Robert Gibson is.
Yeah.
And like just how good like Ricky Morton is. Like, I don't think people appreciate that he's like elite level talent.
Well, I remember they gave him a pretty long match against Flair on TBS one time, and I want to say 86, maybe.
Yeah, that was it after? Remember, that was shortly after they did that promo where like Ric Flair pulls out the training bra.
Yeah.
And then Ricky Morton takes his glasses off and steps on him right in front of him.
Yep. I remember there was this weird stretch where like every 3rd episode, Ricky would have on this Mickey Mouse shirt. I'm like, what are you doing? That's just so weird. Like, that was weird. But
he still works, man. And he's like,
I know he does. It's insane. It looks like his face is made of plastic.
Because I know, do you know who Effie is on the indie scene? So Effie is like an openly gay wrestler, and he does in Mania weekend he does Effie's Big Gay Brunch, and they did a thing with him last year, and Effie tweeted after, he's like, I gotta live my dream, which is making out with Ricky Morton in front of Tommy Rich.
Wow, that's all we need. But
he does a lot of indie stuff, like he works at GCW. That's I think his primary promotion.
Mm-hmm.
He's a good ambassador. He's a guy that really went to bat for the Briscoes.
Mm-hmm.
when like AEW bought like Ring of Honor, and TBS didn't want them on for things they had done like a long time ago, and Effie was kind of like, hey, you know, I've worked with these guys, I think they've changed, like you should give them a shot.
Yeah, I think I've seen Ricky like on some NWA like Billy Corgan
Yeah, they did the
stuff
first
recently.
season. They did the first
Yeah.
season. His no, he's on there because his son Kerry Morton
Yeah.
is on the USA show, I think.
Yeah.
I think he might be their junior heavyweight champion right now, but I'm
Got
not
it.
sure.
So here's something for the chat. Do you remember that the Sleaze website? The wrestling Sleaze website?
DV, the Death Valley Driver.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, the list. So do you remember the device that Hacksaw was rumored to have?
Yeah, the yeah. Do you want me to say it?
Yeah, go ahead. I don't care.
The dildo blender. So Tim, do you want to know something funny about that we found out about the Sleaze thread years later thanks to AEW? Do you know who the originator of that thread is? Is Tony Khan, is the original poster that started the Wrestling Sleaze thread. That came full circle. I think he admitted it like on Wrestling Observer Radio.
Holy cow.
But my favorite one, speaking of the Rock and Roll Express, is the Jimmy Valiant story.
I don't know. I don't like that guy. So what's the story?
So he was getting a glass bottom boat from a woman.
I know what that is. Yeah.
And so the Rock and Roll Express walked in, and I guess Ricky Morton got sick and left, and Robert Gibson stayed and watched.
Wow.
And there's a shoot interview actually with Raven and someone going through this thread. And Raven was like, I don't know, I can't see Ricky Morton leaving. But yeah, that's one of the ones in there. I haven't read that thread in forever.
Yeah, I cannot. We've talked about this. I can't stand Jimmy Valiant. Like, I just can't. Like, I don't see anything redeeming about the guy. His ring work, his character, his appearance. He's just disgusting.
You know, I hated him for a long time. And when I did my rewatch of JCP a couple years ago, suddenly something like clicked with me, and like he's not a good worker or anything. I'm not going to say he was a good in-ring talent, but I really found like the entertainment value in him though. And it's hard to describe. Like his stuff in Memphis is better, honestly.
Mm-hmm.
Like there's an angle he does with Tommy Rich. And you know it's going to be good because Tommy Rich comes out in a white shirt, and you know it in the South when a wrestler comes out in a white shirt, they're about to bleed like a stuck pig.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know. There's just something that clicked with it that time with me, and I really enjoyed like the character. Like I love that. Like remember when he brings out that woman like for Dusty Rhodes, and it's just like the skankiest hoe you can think of.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, you know, I appreciate that because that is the kind of woman that like Jimmy Valiant would be in.
Well, yeah, look at Big Mama.
Yeah. You know what's actually funny is I have his autograph because I was just on his website and it was like I don't know, it was like $5 or something, and he mailed me a signed 8x10, and he emailed me like, yeah, do you want this personalized? Like, oh yeah, just make it out to this, and I got it like a couple of days later.
Wow.
But yeah, I can understand why people don't like him though. He's like he's a bit out of place, I think, if you watch it today. Like, 'cause I think he's kind of like he's a product, I think, of like the 60s and 70s, like in his presentation.
Right. Yeah, never been a fan. But you know who I do like is Johnny Valiant.
Oh, Luscious Johnny V.
Oh yeah, he's actually hilarious. Anytime he was like guest commentator, like he was legitimately like funny. Just some of his comments, and it didn't rival Bobby or anything, but when they paired him up with Gorilla or whoever, he actually was pretty damn funny. Now, as like a worker and even a manager, his interviews weren't good. But when he was in the booth, I go back and listen to some of that. He's pretty damn funny. So,
I like when Michael Hayes and Jim Ross are paired. They're
oh
like,
yeah,
and Jerry Lawler, like in Memphis, is really funny. Like he's not like the over the top Lawler from like the Attitude Era, but like he gets some really good like one liners off there. And Lance Russell's just a great announcer.
yeah. I've seen YouTube videos, of matches, probably that you've sent me and stuff. So, um, but yeah, so he went to WWF. So he did all that, and I don't think the suspension was long because he was back by April or May.
No, but
You
I think his push was diminished when he came back.
Yeah, for sure. And Sheik was mad because he wanted like a return to prominence, right? Because he'd been on this tag team and all that stuff. So he wasn't very happy about it.
Yeah, but I mean, honestly though, Sheik was washed by 87.
Oh, big time. Huge. Yeah,
And
so
then
he go ahead.
I was gonna say then DiBiase pops up towards the end of 87, I think. Or no, he shows up in the summer,
Nope.
I think.
Nope. Yep. The vignettes, I think they actually started either in late May or early June. Because I just rewatched that year a couple of years ago. So that's when they start popping up. And man, if you were there at the time, it's like it was so awesome. It's like this is great. And they were doing that stuff into the 90s because that's how they brought Razor in. Like weeks of all these vignettes, and then suddenly the guy shows up on television. So, but with DiBiase was great because they were entertaining as hell. Like after they'd play, like we'd reenact them, me and my friends and all that stuff. So it was good. But with Duggan, then he started coming out with the flag on his 2x4, and he started like stopping cheating and stuff. Do you remember that in
Yeah.
late 87? Because first they brought in fucking Mr. T. That was awful. It was like a 2-month stint where he was the enforcer, and he would come out and tell the ref like, hey, this guy had his foot on the ropes, and we reversed the decision. That was terrible. Well, he disappeared, and then they kind of had Duggan be the one to come out with the 2x4 if somebody was trying to cheat or if they were singing a national anthem, all that type stuff. And then Survivor Series. I'm trying to think of whose team he was on.
Was he on Hogan's team?
Let's look. He might have been, because that was like a pretty badass team. It had Orndorff, which 1 year before they're like mortal enemies. I remember the interview where Hogan's like, can I trust you and all this stuff, and he's like screaming yes. No, it was Morocco, because he had turned face.
Oh, that was awful.
Yeah, it was. And it was Patera who he
was coming out to like
stream.
That was like he was with Billy Graham and they were coming out to like Jesus Christ Superstar, weren't they?
Something like that, yeah. And then Bigelow was the other one on the team. But let's see who the other. I know that he was on a team.
It was just Bigelow. That was Hogan's team.
Yeah. So
let's see.
He
was on that team.
He was on the one with Beefcake, Jake Roberts. Randy had already turned face by then. And Steamboat, yes. So yeah, against that's actually a great one, except for Beefcake. You've got Harley Race, you've got Ron Bass, you've got Hercules, Danny Davis, and Honky Tonk Man.
Beefcake
was on that team.
Beefcake wasn't like worthless in this era.
Well, but here's the thing, and I'll admit this: at the time, like bar none, in '87, he was my favorite. I don't know why. I guess I just liked his style or whatever. But growing up, as an adult, I look back now and he was just horrible. His WrestleMania matches,
He was
Like, you have to be competent enough in the ring, and he wasn't.
he was like in '89. He was kind of okay. Like there was a point where he got like I would never say good, but there was a point where I'd say he was almost average in the ring.
Mhm,
The
mhm.
problem with him is that parasailing accident ruined him. Like he
Yeah,
was
it
never
did.
good to begin with, but he was. I don't even know why he tried to wrestle again. Like because he described like what they had to do to like repair his face. So if anyone that doesn't know what happened to Beefcake, and he missed, I think like a year and a half because of this. So someone like took off with like I guess a parasail like on a boat, and they just pretty much kneed him in the face, like going really fast, and destroyed his face completely. And they had to like surgically rebuild his face.
Hmm.
And I think he missed like a year and a half, maybe.
Yeah, and Bobby Heenan put magnets on his face on the primetime set. Do you remember that?
No,
Yeah, and they stuck it because he has metal plates in his face. So, and he rips them off, and he's all mad and stuff. But
you you know what's funny though is if he Hogan had a run in Memphis in '79, and they have Beefcake there as his like little brother. And it was like, oh, he was Hogan's like luggage boy even back in like the late '70s.
yeah. Oh, they've been friends, yeah, for
And
that
I mean, he
long.
was even in like the early '80s, he was like Dizzy Hogan, like he was even like leeching off of that name that
Oh, big
early.
time. Or I think he didn't even use the Boulder name.
Yeah, he was what was it? In Memphis, it was Terry Boulder, but I don't remember what he might have been just Ed Boulder or something.
No, yeah, exactly. And then Horace even used that originally before he became Horace Hogan.
Yeah,
So
you can find like an interview of him and Hogan with like Lance Russell, and there he pretty much just looks like Hogan.
yeah, yep. And then I remember when they first went to WWF, there was like a title match,
Yeah,
and Jimmy Hart.
that was on that was on the Hogan Coliseum tape.
Correct, yes, because I remember renting that, from fucking Blockbuster, whatever, back in the day. And, obviously that was, I'm going to give my friend like this main event and do a typical, heel leg drop 1, 2, 3 match brother type thing.
I don't know,
Uh,
was he the tag champion at the time?
no, that was
Okay,
before he was paired with Valentine, because even
okay,
at WrestleMania, they weren't a tag team yet.
okay, okay.
So, but
It's been
Valentine, by the way, awesome. Like right now in 81, he's like at WWF. He's like so far one of the best ones in the ring.
he was probably Backlund's best challenger.
Hmm. Oh, and they put him over really well on commentary. Like, this guy is, one of the best and all that type stuff. So
We watched on the Four Corners podcast, we're doing the Dangerous Alliance era WCW.
good stuff.
And is either I think it was Beach Blast '92. He has a match with Marcus Alexander Bagwell, and it is ponderously good.
Well, Bagwell could move pretty well then, because I did 93 last year,
Mm-hmm.
and he wasn't horrible when he was paired with Scorpio. You could tell he was green, but he was by no means bad. I think he got bad when he, like, the NWO era.
Well,
I don't think he
and
was very
Rick
good.
breaking his neck,
Yeah, true.
but no, it was like ponderously good. Like probably Bagwell's best match ever, like as a
Hmm.
singles, because Greg just like carried him through it.
People forget about that Valentine run in WCW.
Well, I liked what I liked is when he beat Tito for the IC title, and like so Tito learned to do the figure four
Yep.
himself, so like he
Hmm.
could better like counter it.
Yep. Yeah, I remember that.
Oh,
By the
and
way,
the dog collar match with Piper, that's good too.
yeah, that was on which it was on one of the old Coliseum video tapes. I don't remember which, but that's when I first saw that
I
one.
think it's on Starcade '83.
Yeah, not Coliseum. You're right. because they did like my local Blockbuster had Starcades, maybe about 4 of them. They had
There was a set, wasn't
Chi-Town
there?
Rumble and some others. So
Wasn't there like a set, like it was like 83 to like 87 or something
yep,
of
yep.
VHSs?
You're right. You're right.
Or it was like
I
a
wish
highlight tape of those years or something.
I wish I had cleaned out Blockbuster of all those when they went out of business. Like just to have the tape, even though you're not going to watch it, having the boxes and all that, you could make like a wall display or something because those
Yeah,
boxes were legendary. The
that
covers.
because I know there were 2 Blockbusters near me, and like they had different tapes. So I know there was a summer I blew
Same
through
here.
like all of their tapes.
hmm Same here. I mean, they had a whole like one whole shelf wide, every shelf on it full of different tapes and
Yep,
stuff.
especially in the Monday Night War era.
hmm
And I
And
mean,
then you,
even then, VHSs were expensive. Like, I don't know if you've ever watched like the old stuff and seen like what like Turner wanted for like a VHS of a pay-per-view.
oh yeah.
It was like $50.
Do you remember how much Return of the Jedi was? The very first VHS?
No, I was way too young for that. How was it
You
like $60?
yeah. You know how much I mean in 2023 money, like my parents are like, there's no way you're getting that. I didn't get that until like a local video store went out of business and they sold all the copies. In fact, I have it on the shelf still, and you can tell it's a video store copy, not just because of the sticker saying home video center, but because it has like a different colored the tape flap thing.
Mm-hmm.
It's like beige colored because it's more heavy duty. The video stores got more heavy duty ones because of the constant use and stuff.
Well,
That's when I got it. I didn't
I
even get to buy it because it was too expensive. So
I think my copy, I got the remasters in the early 90s because VHS was like reasonable then. But I think my original copy of Return of the Jedi was taped off of like HBO or something. That's where most of my stuff came from. The first VHS I think I owned was like Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade because there was like a Burger King promotion or something where you could
I
get
remember
one
that.
for like $10 or something.
I remember that. Hell yeah.
And
That's
that's
how I
like,
got Temple of Doom, actually.
yeah, that's because it was prohibitively expensive until maybe the late 80s.
Right, right.
But my parents were like, my dad had like it was like a 2-piece VCR actually, because he got one like when they were really expensive, like $1,000. So they had like VHS in like the early 80s. But
hmm
that's why rental stores were popular because I think even in the early 80s, VHS was like $100.
Oh yeah, big time. So anyway, yeah, Blake was saying down in Australia, the only way he could see the pay-per-views was tapes because obviously they weren't showing down there. And it's not like, you had, hey, give me a link, do you have a link, a feed to, no, not in the 80s. So it's crazy to think about that, how there was a delay for some people to see this stuff.
Well, I mean,
Yeah, I
some people
remember.
didn't even have access to pay-per-view until the 90s. Like, I mean, a lot of people didn't have, which is something I didn't realize because of the city I lived in. Like, I didn't
Right.
realize like certain people didn't have cable until the late 80s because we in Columbus they had cable in the 70s.
hmm
And
Well, like WrestleMania 3 wasn't even on pay-per-view. It was closed
no,
circuit.
yeah, because
And I was able to see it in my house, but the Civic Center, back then they would have these screens at places and you would pay to get in and watch it on a screen. They do movie theaters in some places now, but it was literally just like a Civic Center. It probably held, if you're lucky, 2,500 people, and they would have a screen and projector there and you would pay to get into it. I guess that would be cool because you're in the atmosphere, of, hey, we're in a crowd and all that. But no, we would get this stuff on television, until pay-per-view came out. It was closed circuit television. You had to
that
call a phone number and all that.
yeah, that's how boxing was too.
hmm Crazy, just vintage stuff. And
Yeah,
I remember everyone talking about it at the time the next day. Like, oh, I can't believe Honky Tonk Man beat Jake the Snake, and it was like it was mainstream, you know.
Especially 3. 3 was like probably the height
Yeah.
of that era.
Mm-hmm.
Because there's people that still will mention that, like, if wrestling comes up, that's like their reference point.
Right. I remember Hacksaw eventually feuding with Andre. Remember that feud?
Yeah, there was it might have been on a Coliseum tape, but I think I just saw it on like one of those house show tapes. There is like a really good match he and Andre had when like Andre was really immobile just because like Hacksaw was pinballing for him.
Yeah. Yeah, that's how good he was. You know, anyone that could make Andre look good at that time was really good because he was that immobile. Like, oh, that double underhook he did on Hogan at 3 was horrible.
Yeah. I didn't like that angle.
Threw him over.
the angle they did though, like on that Saturday night's main event where he came back and he attacks Hogan. And like all these people are just trying to get him off of Hogan, and like I think Hacksaw's even like hitting him with the 2x4. Like they made Andre look like a total monster in that segment. But yeah, like he just shouldn't have been wrestling in that era, in my opinion. Because if there's some stuff on YouTube from like the late 70s and early 80s, like stuff like Andre versus Stan Hansen and versus Harley Race, like watch those if you want to see like what like Andre when he still had like the physical ability to move was like, because he was actually a really good worker.
Oh yeah, I've seen stuff for sure. Over the years I've seen stuff. But yeah, he did that, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I think he won a Royal Rumble.
The first one.
I thought Stud won the first one, or was that the second one?
I think it's the second one, because the first one was only like 20 people.
Yep.
Well,
and it was on USA Network as well.
Because it was counter programming for the Bunkhouse Stampede.
Yep. Man, that's a whole topic in and of itself. Like
which is funny. Do you know why that counter programming finally ended? Is because they kind of did it back and forth, but the first Clash of the Champions really screwed WrestleMania 4 because it was such a better show. They just, like, WWE stopped doing it because it hurt their buy rate.
4 was awful in my opinion.
Yeah, and it was going up against like Flair and Sting for the first time.
Yep. Yeah, 4 was awful. I mean, just good idea, maybe, but
so long.
Mm-hmm.
And that
I remember
Jake
there was
Rude match is just terrible because like
rest hold mania
because they're going to a time limit draw and they just are killing time. It's terrible.
It was I remember people chanting boring at the time, not just when I rewatch it. At the time, I remember people chanting that. Yeah, just stupid.
Yeah.
But yeah, we could have a whole stream on all the stuff that Vince was doing to try to put these guys out of business. I've read some crazy stuff over the years.
Stuff they were doing with the pay-per-view providers and stuff behind the scenes.
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
Because there
television stations and
because they wanted a blackout that would have essentially frozen JCP out.
Yeah.
Like you weren't allowed to have another different wrestling company like 30 days after a WWF show or something like that.
Right.
It was something insane like that.
Yeah, he was fast and he had a gas tank. The Afro Andre. Yeah, and then let me think of what else on Hacksaw. So he won that Rumble, and he just kind of, was a solid mid-carder.
He had the crown for a while. Remember, he was
king. Yeah.
Because I think he beat Haku for that, and then Savage beat him for it.
Yep. That's exactly correct.
How long was it King Duggan for? Was it? I don't think it was long.
It couldn't have been longer than a year. Yeah, he did win the first Royal Rumble. So Stud must. I think that was when Stud came back in '89.
Yeah.
Let's see, American period. Well, that was like the whole period, or American Patriot. Where's the King at? Okay, so SummerSlam. No, that was like a tag team match. Hold on. Mid '89, he won the crown on July 9th of 1988. But it says he eventually lost his crown to Randy Savage, but it doesn't say when.
Okay.
So it must have been within a year.
I've seen the match where he lost it, I think.
Mm-hmm. It must have been within a year.
I didn't like King Savage very much, though.
No, that was horrible.
Yeah. They didn't
Just
know
the
what to do.
crown and all that.
They didn't know what to do with him in that era, I don't think.
Well, I think they knew, but they couldn't do it because probably someone was preventing it from happening.
Yeah.
If you know what I mean. So, because it was crazy, like going back and watching even '86, even in '86, the fans like wanted to cheer him, and they're like, "Oh, let's have him like destroy Steamboat's throat or whatever," with the bell, to give him some heat. But then again, by May, June of the next year, they're cheering him again. It's like we have no choice. They had to turn him.
Yeah.
Had to turn him face. And then once they did, it was like people are popping as loud as Hogan, I believe, in my opinion, from what I remember seeing in my rewatch. So
Hogan coming out on Saturday night's main event to save him was really good.
Oh yeah, because it was weird because here's the situation, guys, like in the 80s, you'd have these storylines where, let's say, Tito Santana is getting beat up by Honky Tonk Man. He blindsided him, whatever. It's like, well, wait a minute. Why don't any of the faces come help Tito?
This is this is a WWF thing. Like if you watch JCP or like other companies.
Oh yeah, they would. Yeah.
Yeah, you usually have now in other companies, just for comparison's sake. Sometimes it was the job squad if they didn't want them to get it broken up,
or referees. Yeah.
Yeah.
So anyway, no, that would never happen. So suddenly it was on main event, Saturday night's main event, whatever. Elizabeth runs to the back,
and it's the it's the Hearts and
Honky Tonk Man.
And they're he smashes the guitar on his head.
Yeah, so she comes out and she has Hogan by the arm, and he's looking around like, I'm confused. What am I doing? And the crowd goes wild because that never happened. Like they would never run in to save like fellow baby faces. So it was a pretty huge moment. And then the handshake, the cocaine fueled handshake happened.
Well, what I liked about that though is like Hogan's confused and like he sees like what's going on in the ring and he doesn't even question it. He just goes in and like starts whooping ass.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's real. We did a whole like watch through of that storyline, which is really good because it's a storyline that goes over like 2 years almost.
Mm-hmm.
And like really has a lot of subtleties to it.
Right. So when I rewatched 93, I was reminded of the mini feud he had with HBK, and then they had a IC title match on one of the first Raws.
Those matches are ponderously good considering Michaels was not entertaining in that era.
Right. I mean, I think he had the talent. It was probably like a choice,
He was just boring. I don't think he was used to like. I think for a guy who worked primarily tag, I think it's hard to transition and be a compelling single star.
Right.
And they do the matches back to back, right? Like they do one week and then they come back with the rematch the next week.
Yep.
But I just remember being shocked because they were like really good.
Yep. I think he was pretty much out after that. And then he went to WCW. His WCW career, like the only thing I remember, and this is sad, two things I remember are Canadian Hacksaw
Mm-hmm.
and Filthy Animals Hacksaw.
I don't remember Filthy Animals Hacksaw.
Oh, it was horrible.
Was that when he was in the janitor's outfit?
Yeah, and there was one funny thing about it. There was one funny thing. So they come out and they're cutting a promo, and I don't remember who all was in it at the time, but it was like the post New Blood era of Filthy
Oh,
Animals.
yeah.
So you had
Ugh.
Conan and Ray, and you had Kidman and Tigress, was that her name? You had
Oh, I don't even remember her.
Eddie, I think. Yeah, she was a Nitro girl that became like Ray's valet.
Eddie was
Mass
gone
Best Ray.
for. I think Eddie was gone in the New Blood era because they had left right before that started.
Yeah, you're right. My bad. You're right. So anyway,
Was it
he
no? Chavo was the stupid MIA thing, I think.
yeah, he was Lieutenant Loco.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, you had Corporal Cajun, Lieutenant Loco, GI Bro, Major
General
Guns.
General Erection, I think. Oh God, stupid.
Yeah,
Russo
that was
stuff.
what's his name? Hugh Morris.
Yeah.
So
Piece of
anyway,
shit, by the way, that bullies his trainees.
maybe, I don't know. Like, is that his job? I don't know any of the
There was
details.
a whole scandal with him in NXT, and there's like a lot of like in-person testimony. Like it's before like Albert took over, but he was just a jerk and like would abuse the talent and stuff.
Was it worse than like Bob Holly on Tough Enough? Remember all that
Not
stuff?
that bad. It was more
That was pretty bad.
It was more the old school mentality, like that you heard, like when Vern Gagne would, like the stuff like Flair said they did to him, or just where they thought just straight up abusing people in training was the way to do it. Kind of like that.
Gotcha. Well, anyway, so Duggan's cutting a promo, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they were feuding with someone, and I can't remember who the female was, but he's like, whoever you are, I'd have to hunt this down. He's like, you are a no good, nothing, blah, blah, blah. Ho, so he called her a hoe. That was kind of a good moment. But beyond, like, what the heck was he doing in Filthy Animals? Then let's bring him out in the white jumpsuit as part of Team Canada, which, by the way, Team Canada kind of, it sucked, but Lance Storm during that era was the best Lance Storm there ever was. He had 3 belts. Yeah, 3 belts. They pushed him. The character was just great. They tried to replicate it with the Un-Americans in WWE, but it didn't work. But it was working in WCW in the year 2000. But the team got done because they started reaching, like, oh yeah, Hacksaw is from Glens Falls, and then what was the black guy's name? Elix Skipper.
Yeah, Elix.
Okay,
Elix Skipper.
You know what they did? He played on a Canadian football team, which I don't even think was true. I don't even think it was true. So it's like, you guys are reaching. Like, if you're going to do a Team Canada, then actually use Canadians. And then Mike Awesome, like, that's stupid. Like, you have actual Canadians. So if you want to make a Team Canada, do 3. You don't need 8 people. Just do 3 people that are really Canadians. So
I think they had PCO, but he ran into visa issues like right off the bat. Pierre Carl Oulet.
Oh yeah, you're right. Yep.
They had him for like 1 week, and I think he had visa issues and like never returned.
I remember that. It was like April of 2000. Yeah, that was like Heart Foundation. I don't think they ever called it Team Canada during the proto Attitude Era. It was like just the Heart Foundation. Yeah, that was an all-time, and I missed it. I wasn't watching at the time. I have had to go back and watch it, but I imagine watching it first run was probably pretty cool to watch, and the stories that are told about it. Anyway, after that, he pretty much became a Saturday night staple. I remember, because I would watch Saturday night. I would kind of look forward to it because you got to see guys like that. You got to see Barry Darsow putting, and stuff like that. And then that was like pretty much the end of his in-ring career. I'm sure he did some indies and all that stuff. And I think he came back when I wasn't watching Raw. Like,
Yeah, they did some stuff with him after the fact. He popped up in TNA for a couple of shots too.
like early TNA.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, 2003.
He
Back
and
when it was
Moondog.
NWA TNA.
He and Moondog Spot teamed up for a match against someone or other, and I don't remember. It was like right before Moondog Spot died.
Yeah, it says versus Mike Sanders and Disco.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
But
And then
yeah,
he was
that was
kind of. I think he actually wrestled some matches for WWE after that.
Yeah, it says he was with Eugene.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. And I know he'd pop up here and there for like a backstage segment for like probably into like the early 10s.
Was he an agent or?
I don't know. I think they just bring him in for stuff. But I don't quite remember anymore. I wasn't actively watching from about 2008 until about 2012 because I kind of lost interest after the Benoit murders.
Yeah.
And I didn't get back until 2012. So my memories of that era are like hazy. Like I still kind of followed, but I wasn't actively watching much.
Got it. Anyway, but beyond that, like
I met him at a convention once, way back.
well, pretty awesome guy. You know, if you follow him on social media, good stuff. And then there was the
failed break-in at his house.
Yes.
My joke when he did that is like he didn't really pull a gun on the guy. It was just his 2x4 pointed at him like a gun.
Yeah, because he used to do that, you know. He used to do that in the ring.
But I read the story too. I don't remember how the guy ended up in their house. I just know Hacksaw like had him on the ground with a gun to his head, I think.
Yeah, I think there was a connection somehow, like a neighbor or whatever, and the guy showed up, you know. But it could have wound up going really bad, you know, if he had shot or if the guy had been armed and he shot or whatever. But yeah, it's pretty cool that the story happened that way.
He's a really like versus a lot of guys. Like if you look at his Instagram and stuff, like he's just kind of a sweet old man that like is living his best life.
Yep.
It's nice to see someone that's not like so cynical in their elder years.
Yeah, and you can tell like when he's in pictures with other people that he's genuinely happy. You know who else I like following? Like following Tatanka.
Oh, interesting. I didn't know he was like active on.
Yeah, his son is a amateur wrestler, so they travel and all that stuff, and he has a lot of photos like from the 90s, obviously, like a ton, like where they're at a hotel bar and like pictures you've never seen anywhere before, like heels together with faces, and you see a lot of that from the 90s. You'll see Yoko with whoever, you know, Undertaker and all that. But yeah, he's on Facebook. It's like every other damn hour he's making a post.
He was underrated, I thought.
Oh yeah, big time.
I still love IRS repossessing the headdress because they didn't pay the gift tax.
Yeah. They kind of started ruining him when they put him in the corporation.
Oh, that was so stupid.
Like if you want to turn him heel, great, but not as.
He had that oddball return in like 2003, 2004 era.
Mm-hmm.
I
remember that. It was around the time Perfect had returned to.
It was, but that because remember that like I hated the the corporation Tatanka because it was such a stupid double turn because it was him and Luger. And you were supposed to think Luger was going to turn, and they turned to Tonka. And I don't know. He really lost all of his momentum then.
Yeah.
Because then they were teaming him with like Bam Bam, weren't they?
I wasn't watching during that era either. I stopped watching in 92 because I had to start working. And, you know, I wasn't able to really tape stuff. But he wasn't with him in 93, so I don't think that happened until 94, because by WrestleMania 11, I think the corporation had started up. So if I'm remembering correctly, maybe it was 95.
I think it goes into 95.
Yeah.
Because 94 Taker versus Taker. I think that was 94 SummerSlam.
Sounds about right.
Oh, that's not a good era.
That was Brian.
Oh, it's Brian Lee. Primetime
Brian Lee. Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
Because 93 Raw kind of is okay. The roster is really thin, but you have 1, 2, 3 Kid, Scott Hall, Doink the Clown as Matt Bourne is really underrated, great worker there. Brett's really good in that era. Like Perfect until he gets hurt is really on fire that year. The stuff with Yoko's decent. Luger, when he goes like to the All-American Luger, they really dropped the ball in that one.
Yeah. Big time. Yeah, those interviews they did with them, were a little cheesy and stuff, but they were basically trying to humanize them and stuff.
That contract signing promo he did though, right before SummerSlam was, I thought, excellent.
Oh yeah.
But then that totally like set him up for failure the way they did that too.
Big time. The bus tour.
Yeah, I know. But also there's some good alumni from Mid-South though that I think people would be interested in, because you have guys like Butch Reed came through there. Brad Armstrong got a push. He won the North American title at one point. Really young Magnum TA came through. One Man Gang was a top guy there. Freebirds, obviously.
Cactus Jack was there.
Yeah. Sting got his start in the UWF. He starts out with Warrior as like the Blade Runners, and then he sticks around with Eddie Gilbert's group before he goes face. And let's see, who else was there?
Shane Douglas was there. Arn Anderson was there.
Arn was kind of a job guy. Shawn Michaels had a run there too as a job guy.
That's crazy.
Buddy Landell.
Gordy, yep, Landell was there. Mr. Wrestling 2, of course.
Yep.
In the white.
Yep. Dr. Death, Steve Williams, Jim Ross. If you keep watching, Jim Ross shows up in the spring. Jim Ross gets to start there.
Announcer?
Announcer, yeah.
Okay.
Because he's announcing for something else at the time, but I don't remember what it was.
Here comes Dr. Death, Steve Williams. He's an All-American from Oklahoma.
Yeah. I'm trying to think.
Jesse Barr.
You should see Jesse Barr pop up, I think, pretty quick.
Let's see.
Iceman King Parsons has a bit of a run in the UWF. He's a personal favorite of mine. Coco Ware and Norvell Austin as pretty young things come through. Well, obviously the big one, and it's the biggest run that we need to talk about, I guess, is, and it also kind of shows why Bill Watts is kind of unique. So around 83, his shows weren't drawing so well anymore. So they have, Jarrett and the Memphis guys come down, they watch a couple shows, and so they're like, well, where are the blowjobs? And Watts is like, what are you talking about? And so if you don't know, it's a wrestling term. So blowjob is like a pretty boy babyface tag team. And so they explain it to him. They're like, you need a pretty boy tag team, because if you draw the ladies in, the men are going to come too. So they do this talent trade. So they send down Jim Cornette, the Midnight Express, and the Rock and Roll Express. And then Memphis got like Rick Rude, King Kong Bundy, and I think Jim Neidhart is who they sent back. So they start the Rock and Roll Express versus the Midnight Express feud there, and that did huge business for them. And Cornette has a lot of interesting fan stories there. Because he said the fans down there were just, like, he said the cops would have to like escort you to the ring, but you had to be careful because if they thought they could do it, they would reach between the cops and they'd stab you. And he said, they'd slash your tires and stuff, but he said like the real assholes wouldn't slash your tires, they'd stab your tires so you get a flat on the highway.
Yep, because it doesn't come out, yeah.
Yeah, and then just all sorts of stuff. Like they were getting chased by these guys in a truck, and like Dennis Condrey pulled a gun out from under his seat and like brandished it at him.
I can see that.
Yeah.
Dutch Mantell was there.
Yep. Bill Dundee was there booking for a while.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm. Because Watts didn't book all of it. Watts would use bookers for like 6 months at a time.
Mm-hmm.
And if you hear him talk about it in shoot interviews, he pretty much says like, a booker only has so much in them for a single area at a time. So I would change it up to keep the product fresh.
Mm-hmm. It says Hector and Chava were there, but that's why I remember seeing them on TBS after the acquisition.
Was it Hector and Chava, or was it Mondo? And
it was Chavo. Yeah.
Yeah. The Los Guerreros were like a Southern and Texas staple.
Yeah.
At the time.
King Kong Bundy.
Yeah.
That must have been, I'm going to guess 83, 84, because he was in Dallas for a while.
Well, you're watching him with hair right now, aren't you?
I haven't seen him yet.
Yeah, he'll have hair for a little bit. Mm-hmm. He'll be a good guy.
Jim Neidhart.
Yep. I don't know what he did. I don't remember what he did in Mid-South as much as Memphis.
Let's see. Kerry Von Erich. Okay, that's interesting.
I don't think he did like anything sustained. I think he just passed through a bit. I know Kamala did a run. The Snowman, who later hawks the USWA title belt.
Big Boss Man, aka Ray Trailer. Oh, I didn't know Jake was there. I wonder when that was.
Right before he went to WWF.
Oh, okay.
Because that's the one where he was, I think it was Dick Slater. Everyone thought he was leaving, so Watts kind of pulled a twist and had him win the North American belt and then lose it again before it was out, but he threw like a bit of a twist in there.
Oh, Lanny Poffo. That must have been, before WWF as well, when they were doing Memphis stuff, I'd say.
Rick Steiner started out there too.
Yeah, I saw that.
And you have to remember,
it's quite a roster.
In this era, Mid-South paid better than everyone, so they got like about everyone to come through.
Mm-hmm. Oh, and by the way, you know who owned Tri-State before the sale, right?
Is it McGurk?
Yep, and his daughter was the ring announcer. She's one of the ones that kind of complained about stuff, about harassment and whatever. Mike McGurk.
Yeah, interesting.
Doink the Clown. He must be behind. But yeah, so great promotion. If you guys have the means, check it out. Start early 81 and you'll see some good stuff, some good storylines, some good work, some good promos, all that.
What's available, there's more out there, but it's like it needs to be cleaned up. And I only know this because so before WWE owned it, you could buy it from Micah Watts, who's his son. You used to be able to just buy this on DVD from his son. And he said at some point they have the pre-80, they have the stuff before December 81 on 8mm maybe, but they need to like clean it up and then convert it over. And so WWE has that stuff, but WWE is really lazy about putting their footage up.
Yeah, it makes me mad.
But they have everything after 81. There's a couple episodes missing here and there, but I think once you get to March or April, it's all good.
That's great.
Maybe June if it's worse.
Riff Magos is here. Thanks for the replay watch. And by the way, encourage people to watch the replay. It's out there forever. Yeah, so Mid-South is great. Hacksaw is great. I missed meeting him about 6 months ago, like really mad. So I'm going to try and do that because there's only a few of them now. And then I miss meeting Valentine, which would have been awesome. Did you know that he does comic books?
No, I didn't.
Yeah.
Maybe. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's interesting. But I'd like to meet some of these 80s guys before they're all gone, I'm really upset that I didn't just go ahead and go to StarCast because for only 200 you got to pick on like a replicated TBS network or Superstation set with all of the horsemen. I think it was Barry, Arn, Rick, JJ, and Tully. I mean, that would have been great to have, but I want to meet a lot of these guys before they're gone.
Yeah, I met who was it the one I went to? I went to one with Shad 2 years ago now. It was Charles Wright, who was Godfather.
Yep.
Lex Luger.
He seems like a cool guy.
Coco was there. Rhino, Bobby Fulton from the Fantastics, Magnum TA. Billy Gunn and his kids, Jimmy Hart, Gail Kim.
I'd like to meet Jimmy.
Jimmy's really nice.
That's what I hear.
And then I think Stan Hansen was supposed to be there, but I think he got sick or something before it started. So I was really bummed about that. Oh, and Bobby Blaze was there. If you want like your weird Saturday night job guys from the late 90s.
Yeah, it would be great to meet like Coco too. Man, just those 80s guys.
Coco's a talker.
I bet. I believe it.
This poor bird died in a fire though.
The original Frankie?
Yeah, he died in a fire in like the early 2000s, I think.
So stupid question, but how long do those birds live?
Depending on the type, they can live to be like into their 90s, I think.
Holy shit. I had no idea.
Yeah, because you usually have to leave them to someone else because like a friend of mine has one and it's like 37, I think. So yeah, they live forever.
Crazy. But yeah, guys, check this stuff out. Tell friends about the stream and make sure you click on those links for Four Corners. And also, like, get ready for the next stream because it's going to be Shad probably sometime in June, I'd say. And we're going to talk about more of the insider stuff because how many indies did he work for? Just one?
No, he worked for, I think he had a primary one, but I think they worked with other companies. And I think he worked like a couple of one-offs because he just happened to be at a show and they're like, hey, we need a spot filled.
Yeah. Yeah. So he's told us some of these stories and he can give us some insight. And we're talking about Kentucky here. So, it's got to be interesting.
He did it for, I think, about a decade.
Yeah. Because I remember, the videos he'd send and the photos and all that. Yeah. So it should be a fun one. And I'm sure something else will come up in the meantime that will add to the slate. So be on the lookout for that. And, if I had all the time in the world, guys, I would get more into making shorts and videos on this topic. But I just don't. It's like by the time I wake up, drive to work, then I drive home from work, it's almost 12 hours a day. And then you have to take care of stuff. There's just things that take 2 or 3 hours at night. And then it's like, okay, what do I do? Well, I'm going to set up my stream for Friday and research this and that. And it's time to go to bed. So if I were a full-time content creator, I'd be making a lot more wrestling content because it's something that I know about. It's something I've been in since 86, but I just don't have the time. But these guys do, and they have this podcast, and you guys are really good about adhering to your schedule. Like I applaud you for that. I know it's probably difficult. Hey, we're going to set aside this time. What is it, every week?
Yeah, we do it the same time every week. Usually what we do is if something's coming up, we'll double record.
Right.
Or there was I think I can say Matt had a kid recently, so we did this crazy ass thing where we double recorded a bunch. And like we would have to talk about something and we'd be like, when's this coming out? Like 3 weeks from now. I don't know.
Yeah.
So it was a really weird limbo period. But yeah, we usually record like Tuesday and then I put it out Wednesday. And we don't do wrestling every week. We do some video games, some comics, and other miscellaneous stuff. We try to. Oh, that was weird.
Yeah, I saw that.
That was and so
Must have been a diamond.
I think So we tend to focus on older stuff. We tend to stay positive. We don't like doing we don't like doing stuff we have to bitch about. Like we do some bad shows for the laughs sometimes, but we tend to focus on things we like instead of.
What was it you said a few weeks ago you wanted me to talk about? I don't remember.
Oh,
X-Men or something?
I don't remember.
Well, obviously I know, a lot of topics. So whatever you guys think I'm interested in, that was an enjoyable experience when we talked about, I think it was just G.I. Joe in general, right? It wasn't confined to any part of that property.
Well, we tried to have you on for Predator last year. We just couldn't make it happen.
I know, man. Kept having to push it out and Blake had a stream on Predator 2 that I was on with him and Lethal Lightning, and we talked about how we felt the second movie was every bit as good as the first. So
I think we might have wanted you on for Star Wars.
What about Star Wars?
I don't remember. It's
Okay.
it's a lot's gone on the last couple of months.
Shipping in Star Wars, probably, right?
Yeah. Well, there's some other things we might do that I might tap you for. I make the joke that I'm gonna just dig a hole in the backyard and fill it up with mud and have you and Dames fight over Star Wars.
Why?
Just for my own amusement.
Why he likes bad stuff, or
he's still a fan. You know how it is.
But he likes like this new stuff, is what you're saying.
I think he likes it better than we do.
Yeah.
But my joke is always like, well, it won't last long because Dames is like 5'3" and are you like 6'5"?
Yeah, about that at this age. Yeah, I used to be maybe 6'6" when I was younger.
Because I
But your
remember
spine compresses over time. So
yeah, because I think I'm the only one that's met you in person.
yeah.
Because I met Chad and I'm like, no, Tim's way bigger than you, Chad. Because we met at that weird little bar burger place in Cincinnati.
Yeah, and it was
That's
loud.
been.
That was 2018, January of 2018.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I remember that.
But yeah, he's a big guy, but I could just tell when I see him in the ring with other people that I'm definitely taller than he is.
Yeah.
So. And he's lost some weight too. So
yeah, he's trying. He's got
me too. I mean, I need 40 at least.
I lost 60 last year, and I'm trying to take off 40 this year.
Well done.
Because I had lost 110 in 2016.
Yep.
And I kept it off, but COVID screwed me.
Oh yeah.
And that working from home, I just didn't manage it well. So I'm 60 pounds into getting off what I gained back, and I need another 40 to get where I want.
Yeah,
So,
I need to go. I need to go down to like 240. Just for a lot of different reasons. That's what the doctor tells me, and I never pass the BMI at work. I have to pay the extra.
I-
So
It's stupid. Like I got down like when I lost it all last time. I was 185. I had nothing left to lose, and I was still well under overweight according to BMI. Like it's stupid.
yeah,
Like I was like skin and bones at 185.
yeah, it's
Like,
a ripoff to get you to pay more is all it is.
Because it doesn't take like I'm like you've met me, like I'm wide and like I have like a barrel chest and stuff. Like it says I'm supposed to weigh 170. Like there's no way.
Right.
Like, you met me at my lowest. Like I was skinny.
Yep.
But yeah, I'm shooting for like 190. I actually did it the first time because I got diabetes. So when I lost the weight, the diabetes went away. So that's why I did
Nice.
it. I mean, and you know, it's just I'm 42 now, and you know, trying to take better care of myself.
Yeah.
But I've tried to take better care of myself. Like when Patrice O'Neill died, that's really where I was like, man, I need to do better.
Yeah. Well, for me, I need to get this elliptical because I need more cardio than anything, and
Are you running into that?
Nordic track.
You run into that like triglyceride shit and all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Ugh, I know. I'm lucky on that stuff. Like that's all normal for me.
And plus for heart and all that. So anyway,
because I don't have to. I'm not on high blood pressure or anything. They're always like, "Are you sure your blood pressure's not high?" It's like, look at the.
oh, mine's always good. Mine's always good.
Mine's perfect.
Cholesterol's good. It's just the damn like BMI. That's it. So
Yeah, it's because I don't know. Like I said, I was still well into overweight, like 185 because you're 15 pounds overweight. It's like, tell me how I'm supposed to lose 15 pounds, like please.
Right.
My doctor
Take a
didn't
big
care,
dump.
though.
That's what I would do.
Yeah, my doctor didn't care. He's like, like you've lost a ton, so
yeah,
I can't bitch at you for losing 100 pounds.
Right. Well, anyway, guys, we're gonna wrap it up. We've been going 2:15, so there are the links. Follow these guys, and then Friday night, about 48 hours from now, a little bit less, we're gonna be live on the Spacing with Lethal Lightning will be a guest, and of course the regular panel. So Brad, thanks for being a guest as always.
Anytime.
And I guess several months from now you'll be back in the rotation. And again, guys, the reason we're doing it this way, when it's more of two people, we can talk more and stuff, and plus schedules are easier to manage. So I like this format a lot more. But yeah, thanks for being here, chat. Thanks for being here. You guys are awesome. We'll see you Friday night. Have a good night.